Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we are reading this week's Torah portion for this coming Shabbat. And when we last saw the children of Israel, they were stuck in Egypt, slaves in Egypt, and Moses and Aaron were representing the children of Israel, and our Creator was giving them a message to speak to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, let my children go. But that wasn't happening. Pharaoh's heart was hardened and he wasn't letting them go. Finally, he decides to let them go, and then we continue this week in Exodus 13:17. This week's reading is Exodus 13:17 to 17:16. And when you talk about signs, wonders, and miracles, yes, we saw Moses throwing down his staff on the floor and it turning into a alligator, or some people say a serpent, and he did all these amazing things. Well, now we're truly going to see the mighty hand of our wonderful Creator, and it's just this of everything from Noah's Ark all the way through any miracle anyone's ever seen. In this week's Torah portion, we're going to see the most amazing thing that ever happened in the history of the world, most likely, and there's proof that it happened. So for any of you people out there that might think, well, the Bible's just a story of fake stories and it's not true, well, we're going to see it's true because I have the proof for you. So we're going to look at Exodus 13:17 to 17:16. And when we think about this, I knew a friend who was not a believer but a secular person that grew up in Israel. And they said in Israel, growing up, he used the Bible as a textbook for his social studies class. And now social studies always meant history. And I said, well, how do you do that, or why do you do that? He goes, because of the things that said happened in the Bible. They have found and uncovered many of those artifacts and everything else perfectly right, exactly where they said it was. So it's a true historical book. It's not fiction, folks. So we look here and we go into, starting again, Exodus 13:17. And it was when Pharaoh had sent the people out, so he let the people go, the people of Israel, that our Creator did not let them go through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For our Creator says, perhaps the people will change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So basically, there was fighting going on in these lands amongst other tribes or people or cities, and he didn't want them to see that because he knew the way they were thinking. He knew the lack of faith that the people of Israel had, even though they were saying that they believed in our Creator. No, they were happy to go, but he knew the majority of them had a serious lack of faith. And if they would have went the easy road out, they would have went right past the wars that were taking place, and they would have gotten scared and changed their mind and went back. He knows our hearts. He knows our minds. He created us and said he knows every hair on our head, as what it says in the scriptures. So he knows how we think. So he created all things with a plan, but he also knew way before we reacted to something how we were going to react. So from the beginning of time, our Creator knows who's going to accept Yeshua as Messiah. Our Creator knows who's going to remain faithful. Our Creator knows all things, and he knew here, there's another great example, that they would have stayed weak. They wouldn't even have made it out of the land of Egypt when they went through the land of Philistine. So what he did was it says, because the war was near, it says, perhaps the people will change their minds and see the war and return to Egypt. And then we continue in Exodus 13:18. But our Creator led the people out about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. Now, there's several different words for this in many different scriptures, but it actually means the way of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up armed out of the land of Egypt. So they went up armed. So they actually had their weapons, which they took from the Egyptians on their way out, or they made. They had their weapons. They went up armed through the way of the wilderness. And now remember, they might have been armed, but they weren't skilled. They hadn't had any wars up to that point. So they didn't know much about fighting, but they were prepared in terms of they had the arms to fight, but they didn't know what to expect from fighting because they weren't fighting at that point. The wars didn't happen yet with Israel. So it says, and the children of Israel went up armed out of Egypt, and Moses took Joseph's bone with him. For he had strictly sworn the children of Israel, saying, Our Creator will surely visit you, and you'll carry up my bones away from here with you. Now, this, as we look back, we saw Joseph telling the children of Israel, my bones will be here in the land, but when you leave, and this was many, many years later, 400 years later or so, 350 years later, when you're going to leave from, this is the time of Joseph, take my bones with you back to the land. Joseph knew and believed in a resurrection. The only issue is he thought it mattered where he was buried here on this earth. He didn't realize that that doesn't really make a difference. And he told him to take the bones with him. Now, I believe, and from Scripture it says, he says, take my bones with you. So they took the bones of the other children of Israel as well, the other children of Jacob, because he says, take my bones away from here with you. He didn't say with them, the future generations. He said with you, or with your bones. So it was Joseph's bones and all the children of Israel, their bones they took. And they took their journey from Sukkot and camped in Etam at the edge of the wilderness. And our Creator went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of the cloud by day or the pillar of the fire by night from before the people. So our Creator was with them. He was with them, as it says here. Now, here we come. It says in 14, it says, our Creator spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel to turn and camp before Pa-Haraki, between Midgal or Middul and the sea, over against Baal-Zephon. Now, Baal-Zephon is a name of a place, but we're also looking at Baal, which was the name of a pagan god, and this could be a spiritual thing as well. So he's sending them between the sea and over against this Baal-Zephon, camp before the sea, before it. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. And I shall harden Pharaoh's heart, so he will follow after them. And I shall be honored by Pharaoh and by his entire army, so the Egyptians will know that I am the Almighty Creator. And they did so. So basically what happened here is, now our Creator this is his final step, putting his foot down, because he's been doing all of these amazing things in the land of Egypt, these plagues that he caused, and to exalt, to know that I am the ultimate Creator and I am in charge of all things. It's not Moses or Aaron that set the children free. It's not Pharaoh that did this. It's me, by my hand, that I did this. And still, Pharaoh and the children of Egypt did not believe. They were not faithful. So our Almighty Creator said, well, I got one more thing coming for them. And this is what they're going to see. So now you had the children of Israel. They were stuck at the edge of the Red Sea in the wilderness. And now you had Egypt coming after them. And they were stuck. What were they going to do? We continue in Exodus 14:5. And it was told to the king of Egypt that the people fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and his servants were turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this? Why have we let Israel go from serving us? And he made his chariot ready and took his people with him. So basically, he said, what have we done? We let them go. We had them. Now remember, this was possibly over 1 million slaves that left the land of Egypt. 1 million slaves. You know how much labor and everything else that would have taken care of? So Pharaoh's starting to get greedy again. And he starts to chase them, and he takes his chariot. Now at that time, it was the custom of the soldiers to go before the king and to protect the king. Well, no, he took his chariot and they followed him. And he went ahead of all of them. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and the captains over every one of them. And our Creator strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horse and chariots of Pharaoh, all the horsemen of his army, and overtook them, camping by the sea, besides Per-Harakim, before Baal-Zephon. So now we see here that they were out, the children of Israel left, and when it says they left with a high hand, They didn't just leave quietly. They knew that it was time to go, and even though they left in a hasty way, in the middle of the night and early in the morning, because the Passover, they left with joy. I mean, they were singing with banners, and remember, this wasn't just a handful of people leaving in the dark in the middle of the night. This was 600,000 men on there, plus their families. This was a lot of people leaving the land. So they left with the high hand. They left and they made it known that they were leaving. Exodus 14:10, and when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were greatly afraid. The children of Israel cried out to our Creator. And then they said to Moses, have you taken away for us to die in the wilderness because there were no graves in Egypt? So here we see the beginning of the murmuring, or it already had started, but here it continues in the wilderness now. This is the first time they're in the wilderness. After they're free, they're actually free, and they're complaining to Moses here. And he says, what have you done? Have you brought us out here to die? You know, were there not enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out here to die? And he says, why have you dealt like this with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is it not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, let us alone so we can serve the Egyptians? For it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die here in the wilderness. So they had no faith. They didn't lose their faith, folks. They had no faith. Creator knew this, and he wasn't only hardening the hearts of Pharaoh, because he could have made them leave, and he couldn't have made it that it wasn't a tough road to go, but he knew their hearts. So he had to harden the hearts of the Israelites as well as the heart of Pharaoh and the Egyptians. And he did that, and it took 40 years for him to do that. And then finally, when they were ready, he sent them into the promised land. But even then they weren't ready, because we'll see what they didn't do and didn't listen then. But here they had their lack of faith, and this is the process. It doesn't take 40 years, even on foot, to go from the desert of Egypt to Israel. But it took them 40 years because they wandered in the wilderness because their hearts were being hardened. It was their lack of faith that kept them wandering. So here they are thinking they're going to die and complaining to Moses. It's better that we serve them than we die here in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, do not be in awe, stand still, see the salvation of our Creator, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will see them again no more forever. So here Moses is showing his faith and his trust, and he's saying, just relax and see what's going to happen. This is the last time you're going to see these Egyptians. For our Creator will fight for you, and you will hold your peace. So that's what Moses' messages were to the children when they were worried with their lack of faith. And that's the message that he gives us all throughout the scriptures, and even today, that we are to have as believers. For our Creator will fight for us against the enemy, and we shall hold our peace, our shalom. We shall not get worried, fearful, upset. Some people actually say it's a sin to be fearful or to fear something other than our wonderful Creator. So many people today will fear so many different things out there, but they won't fear our Creator. And this is the big problem. It shows their lack of faith. It shows who their idol is. And we need to do something about this. 14:15 of Exodus. And our Creator said to Moses, why are you crying to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward and lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. Now, divide it. Now, Moses said, this staff has done some mighty things, but divide the sea? I mean, for all of the hundreds of thousands of people to cross over that sea, again, it wasn't a handful of people that are going to go on a raft and go through the sea. This was a multitude, over 1 million people crossing through this sea, which was several miles long. This sea wasn't some little creek. It was several miles long. And so how was this going to happen? So we see here, the children of Israel will go through the midst of the sea on dry ground. Now let's look at this word dry ground here a second, because not only did they go through the divided sea, but not one speck of water touched them or the ground they walked on. It was completely dry. I mean, walls came up on both ends, and this was a wide road, remember, to fit all those people through. Completely opened. Now, for those of you that think this couldn't really happen and this isn't really true, there's a fellow named Michael Rood who has a video out. He actually went to this area where this happened, and he found evidence, physical evidence, of the chariots of Egypt that chased after them, which we'll see in a moment, still destroyed under this area. Physical evidence to prove that this truly did happen. I mean, you can give your opinion about something when you don't have evidence, but when you have evidence, it's no longer an opinion, it's a fact. And folks, get that video because this did happen. So after it says dry ground, they continue in verse 17. It says, and I am. So he says, and I am, behold, I shall strengthen the hearts of the Egyptians, and they will follow the children of Israel, and I shall get honor for myself from Pharaoh and from his whole army, his chariots and his horsemen. So not only did the firstborn children of Egypt have to die, but now we see that Pharaoh and all his horsemen and all his army had to die as well, for the remaining Egyptians back in Egypt to actually realize that who is the ultimate and only wonderful creator. And it says, and the Egyptians will know that I am the creator when I have gotten honor for myself from Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen. Now this changed the hearts of the Egyptians, but it still didn't change the hearts of the Israelites. And that was a big problem. And that's why they stayed in the desert for 40 years. So we continue, 14:19. And the angel of our creator, it says, it starts off, the angel of our creator. It actually says the angel of God. And we know the God they're talking about. There are many gods of this world, but there's only one creator. 14:19, the angel of our creator, who went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to those, so that one did not come near the other all night. So it separated the clean from the unclean, the good from the evil. You know, and Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and our Creator said, and our Creator caused the sea to go back in strong east wind all that night, and made the sea a dry land, and the waters were divided. And this wasn't some wind that did it. This was our Creator that did it. I don't want people to, no wind is going to do that. It's our Creator that did this. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground. Dry. It wasn't even wet. The floor under the sea wasn't even wet. On dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on the right hand and to the left. And the Egyptians pursued and went after them in the midst of the sea. All of Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Now, the children of Israel were crossing this river or the sea that was miles and miles long, so they probably weren't even out of the end of it when the Egyptians started coming in the beginning of it. So in fact, they were in it at the same time. That's how close this was getting, but it was still miles away. And it was that in the morning watch, and there were different watches. The day was divided into different times, but in the morning watch, it says our Creator looked at the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of cloud, and caused confusion with the army of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels. So they drove them heavily. So the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Creator is fighting for them and against the Egyptians. So not only did he trap them here, but he made their wheels not work, so they were stuck here now in the middle of the water, and they couldn't leave. And it says in 14:26, and our Creator said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, so the waters will come again upon the Egyptians, and their chariots and their horsemen. So now it is the end, the destruction of the Egyptians. It says here in Exodus 14:27, and Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and our Creator overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Well, they couldn't move too fast. First of all, they were miles in already, and they couldn't get out because their wheels were stuck. And the waters returned and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and the entire army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. And there remained not so much as one of them, not one of them. So we saw all of the horsemen, the chariots, and Egypt, and this is including Pharaoh. Not one of them remained, but the children of Israel walked on dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on the right hand and on the left hand. So our Creator saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work of our Creator did upon the Egyptians. And the people revered our Creator and believed our Creator and his servant Moses. So for a quick second here, for a moment here, the people turned around. They just got out of the water and they saw the Egyptians being destroyed, dead, and they realized they were set free. And for a second here, they believed. It said they believed in our Creator and his servant Moses. Now they won't believe for too long, because they started murmuring right when they got to the other side. But first they want to take their victory dance and their false belief, or they thought they believed. So now we go to chapter 15 and we see their victory dance or their victory song. It says, and Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to our wonderful Creator. And when we talk about worship and we talk about singing and dancing, it's part of Scripture, it's part of worship. And here's the song they sung. I will sing to our Creator, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he threw in the sea. So here's Moses' song recapping of what happened. Yah is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my Creator. I will glorify him, my Father's God. I will exalt him. Our Creator is warrior, and Yahweh is his name. So here we see the song continuing. Pharaoh's chariots and his armies, and I'm not singing, folks. I'm not a singer here. So it says, Pharaoh's chariots and his armies he hurled into the sea, and his elite commanders were drowned by the sea of surf, and the deep waters covered them, and then they sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, a wonderful Creator, is subliminally powerful. Your right hand, our Creator, shatters the foe. But by your great majesty you bring down your enemies. You send out your wrath to consume them like stubble. So here is Moses and the children of Israel singing this song. With a blast from your nostrils, and the waters piled up, the waters stood up like a wall. The depths of the sea became firm ground. The enemy said, I will pursue and overtake you and divide the spoil and gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword and my hand will destroy them. You blew with your wind, and the sea covered them, and they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like our wonderful Creator among the Almighty? Who is like you, sublime in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? No one is like him, folks. This is a song that should always be remembered. This is the victory song, and it's easy to praise our Creator, and the children did that when things were victorious and things were going great. But did they sing this song when they were down or did they worry and were they fearful and forget the song? That's exactly what happened. They forgot the song. Moses gave them the song with excitement, encouragement to remember this song, a song of victory, not to forget what had happened. And you remember it as you sing it in the song. But what happened when the children were up against these issues in the wilderness? Did their hearts remain faithful, and did they remember this song, or did they forget the song and lose faith and start going against the messenger of our wonderful Creator Moses? It says, you reached out with your right hand and the earth swallowed them. In your love you led the people, you redeemed them. In your strength you guided them to your holy abode. The people will hear and will be in awe. Sorrow will take hold of the inhabitants of Philistia, and the chiefs of Edom will be amazed. Trembling will take hold of the mighty men of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan will melt away. Fear and terror will fall on them. By the greatness of your arm they will be as still as stone. until your people have crossed over, O Yahweh. Until the people you have purchased crossed over. You will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, the place, our Creator, who you have made for yourself to dwell in a sanctuary, O Creator, your hands have established. And then we go to verse 18. It says that our Creator will reign forever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went into the sea, and his chariots and his horsemen, and again our Creator brought the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went out by dry land in the midst of the sea. So over and over again, this story is reminding the children of Israel and everyone the victory that our Creator gave and the miracle of the Red Sea parting. And that's something we can never forget. And as a believer of Messiah, we have to believe that. That's something never, ever to forget. So, when you forget that, you forget your faith. That's it. That's the end. It continues in 15:20. And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a trombone in her hand, and all the women went out after her with trombones and with dances. And Miriam sang to them, "Sing to our Creator, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has thrown the horse and his rider into the sea." So remember, all of the children of Israel were in on this. And we also see Miriam. Now we learn the name of the sister of Moses and Aaron, who was the little girl that followed Moses along the river from the beginning and went to the princess, to Pharaoh's daughter, and said, "Let me get one of the Hebrew women," and got the mother. So that was Miriam, and she was a prophetess. And so it says that here. So 15:22, Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness. So now they're 3 days from the victory song. It says they found no water. So now here they are 3 days after the Red Sea crossing, and they found no water. And when they came to Moriah, they could not drink from the waters of Moriah, for they were bitter. And therefore the name of it was called Moriah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, "What will we drink?" So here they come complaining now, just 3 days out from this victory song. 3 days ago they had this amazing victory, this amazing faith. And they didn't say with faith, "Well, our Creator will do something amazing for us here." No, they said, "What will we drink?" And he cried to the Creator, and our Creator showed him a tree, and he cast it into the waters, and the waters were made sweet. He made a statue and an ordinance there for them, and there he proved to them. Now this next verse, 15:26 of Exodus, is probably the verse that I have quoted most often than any other verse, and it's the verse people need to remember. And basically, it says, "If you will diligently keep the statutes and commands of our Creator, he will not put the same disease upon you that he put upon the Egyptians." Or he will put none of the disease upon you that he put upon the Egyptians. And what do you have to do? Keep all of the statutes and commands that he's given you. And if you do, it's not about Egyptians, it's about disobedience. He will not put the same disease upon you that he put upon the Egyptians. Now, several things to think about here. First of all, he didn't say he wasn't going to put any disease upon the children. He said, no, they weren't going to get the same diseases. Now, we look again here also, the same disease that will put upon the Egyptians, if you diligently keep my statutes and commands. So, we see that, and we have to understand this message for the world. If you diligently keep my statutes and commands, I will not put the same disease upon you that I put upon the disobedient. So if you remain obedient to my guidelines and instructions, and you keep my Torah, you will not suffer of the same diseases, the same worries and fears as the disobedient in the world. Exodus 15:26. Folks, remember that always. That was the warning when the children were getting worried here. So now, right before they cross the sea, they say to Moses, "Did you bring us here to die?" So the sea opens up. So they get through the sea and they have this victory song. And now they travel for 3 days and there's no water, and they start complaining again. And here is what he tells them. He tells them, look, follow my guidelines and instructions. Stay faithful. Keep my statutes. Keep my Torah. And I will not put the same disease upon you that I put upon the Egyptians. I mean, he made them wander through that desert for 40 years. And not one of them complained of having a blister on their feet or any other issues, except these little things that he did to strengthen their heart, and they worried and they feared, and never once did they say, that's okay, we'll be okay, we have the shalom and peace of our Creator. No, they continuously came up against Moses and Aaron, and they ended up getting the same disease the Egyptians got later on. Because not only did it say, if you keep my statutes and commands, I will not put the same disease upon you that I put upon the Egyptians. He goes on to say in Deuteronomy later on, when the children crossed over into the land, the promised land, if you separate and divide yourself from the unclean things and do not mingle the seed, I will bless you abundantly. But if you continue to do these things, I will put the same disease upon you, upon the Egyptians. But even worse, I will give you new diseases that you never even heard of yet, that not even them were suffering. Well, as a believer today, we have to understand the importance of that. And that is saying, look, if we are believers, we have a higher responsibility. Those that do not claim Yeshua as Yahweh, those that do not claim our Messiah, who he says he is, those people, yes, they will suffer. But those aren't people that are hypocrites saying, well, I believe, and then they show their lack of faith once something negative happens. It says in the scriptures, do not judge the non-believer. You minister and you help the non-believer, but you judge your fellow brother when they say they believe and they show different. That's what it says in the scriptures, folks. So we need to understand that, and we need to remind ourselves and stay faithful and keep his statutes and commands. Keep his Torah. You are a hypocrite if you say you believe in Messiah, but you continue not to follow his statutes and commands. And those are the ones that the scriptures say to be judged. That's what it says in the Bible, folks. Exodus 15:26, remember that. Now let's go to Exodus 15:27. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. And then in 16 it says, and they took their journey from Elim, and their entire congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. Now, Sin is the name of the city, and it's the frontier of Egypt. And it's right there, and they got there on the 15th day after they departed from the land of Egypt. And then we go after victory, we see the complaining, and we see 16:2 of Exodus. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children said to him, would that we have died by the hand of our Creator in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when their bread they ate to eat was full. For you have brought us out here into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So now here we are, 15 days, just 2 weeks after the Red Sea crossing and the children left Egypt. Here they are out in the middle of wilderness looking around, and they see absolutely nothing but desert. Absolutely nothing but desert. Not having faith, not knowing that our Creator is guiding their steps by a pillar and a fire, a pillar of clouds by day and a fire by night, not realizing that, but complaining to Moses. So in fact, the people were free from Egypt, but Egypt was not free from them. They were still remembering Egypt. They couldn't let Egypt go. And this is what happens today to many so-called believers. They profess Yeshua with their lips, but their heart cannot let the world go. And they continue to crave and continue to practice the same thing they did of the actions of the world, even though they say they're now believers. And there are many, not only new believers, there are many so-called confessed Christians out there today who say that they believe in Yeshua, but they cannot let go of the slavery to this world. They cannot let go to the ways of this world. Look, folks, when you accept Yeshua, something is supposed to happen. Your heart is supposed to change. You are to love what he loves and hate what he hates. You might struggle with the things you once loved, but you can no longer love them. But that's not what's happening today, and that's not what's happening here. You see the children, they're out in the wilderness, and what are they thinking about? They're thinking about Egypt. They wanted to go back. I'll tell you this, if they weren't such cowards, they would have probably got right back up, and many of them would have walked right back towards the sea and tried to get back to Egypt, back into slavery. Folks, they get so conditioned in the slavery that it's hard to be free. That's what happens today. But remember, as a believer in Yeshua Messiah, you are free. Free from the struggles, from the slavery of the past. And you no longer have to be a slave of this world. Now you're free. As it says in John, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Well, the truth here didn't set the children of Israel free. They were here and worrying, and they were complaining to Moses. And he continues to satisfy them and continues to meet their needs, but they still continue to complain. 16:4 of Exodus. Our Creator said to Moses, "Look, I shall rain bread from the heaven for you, and the people will go out and gather the day's portion each day, so I can test them, whether or not they will walk in my Torah or in my teachings. And it will be that on the 6th day I will prepare that they will bring in twice as much as they gather daily." And Moses and Aaron said to the children of Israel, "At evening, when you will know our Creator has brought you out from the land of Egypt, and in the morning, then you shall see the glory, the glory of our Creator, for he heard your murmurings against him, your murmuring against us." And Moses said, "This will be when our Creator gives you flesh to eat in the evening and bread to fulfill in the morning. For our Creator heard your murmurings against him, and what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against our Creator." So now Moses is reminding them, look, you're not complaining to Aaron and myself. You're complaining to our Creator. We're just his messengers. But you will see his glory, because our Creator says the bread will fall from the sky. You know, and later on in the scripture it says Yeshua is the bread of life, the salvation. And he continues to save them here, to remind them. And there's a great picture. We see the bread, the salvation of a wonderful Creator. We see that here, the bread saving not the people's lives, but saving their faith, or extending their faith. But it didn't last long, folks. So we'll see what happened here. So, Moses said to Aaron, "Say to the entire congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Creator, for he has heard your murmurings." And it happened as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that he looked towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of our Creator appeared in a cloud. Now, there are many instances in the scriptures where Yeshua Messiah is shown in the original covenant. And I believe this is one of them, because the ultimate glory of our Creator was Yeshua Messiah. And here he was appearing into them into the cloud. So now they've seen him. They've seen Messiah. He appeared to them. The salvation of our Creator appeared to the people. That's what I believe exactly happened here. Well, he provided. So we see here in 16:11 of Exodus. "And our Creator spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At evening you will eat flesh, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. And you will know that I am the ultimate Creator, your God. And this thing at evening, the quails came and covered up the camp. And in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And the dew that lay evaporated, and behold, upon the face of the wilderness, something fine and steely, and fine, and as the hoar first to the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, Manna, which means, what is it? They did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, This is the bread which our Creator has given you to eat. As it said in the scriptures, this is the bread of life. This is the bread that will provide for you the salvation. This is which our Creator has commanded. Each man gather it according to his eating. From an omar for each person according to the number of your persons. Take each person into his tent, or take each amount into his tent. And an omar is equivalent to 2 quarts. So you take 2 quarts. So we have the quail and we have the bread falling down from the sky. Now let's just turn real quick here to John 6:31 in the renewed covenant. John 6:31, it says, we'll turn right here. In John 6:31 it says, Our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, just as it has been written, He gave bread from heaven for them to eat. And then Yeshua said to them, Most certainly I shall say to you, Moses has not given you bread from the heaven, but my Father is giving to you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which descends from heaven and gives life to the world. My Father is giving you the true bread from heaven. So we see the true bread from life, Yeshua Messiah, as it says in John 6:31. The children were now taking their bread, their quarts of bread, back to the tent, And the children of Israel did so and gathered some more and some less, based on the amount of people that were in their tent. And they measured it with an omer, and who gathered it much had nothing left over, and the one who gathered little had no lack. Each person gathered according to his eating. So they had exactly what they needed. Now remember, they were told on the Sabbath to take more the day before, so they would be prepared for the next day. And it says in 16:19 of Exodus, Moses said, "Let no man leave anything until morning." Nevertheless, they did not listen to Moses, but some of them left it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. So some of them did in fact leave it. So they didn't listen to Moses, who was the messenger of our Creator. So it was really our Creator saying, don't leave any until morning. So they did. And now it stank, and worms came out, and Moses was very angry with them. And they gathered it every morning, each man according to his eating, and it melted when the sun grew hot. And it was on the 6th day they gathered double portion, 2 omers, for one person, and the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said to them, "This is what our Creator had said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath to our Creator." So he's refreshing or reminding them of the Sabbath, the importance of it. "Bake that which you will bake today, and boil that which you will boil, and that which remains over and lay up for you to be kept into the morning." And they laid it up until morning, as Moses said, and it did not stink, neither was there any worms in it. And Moses said, "Eat today, for today is the Sabbath, and our Creator has provided today. You will not find it in the field, because he's provided it for you previously. 6 days you will gather it, but the 7th day, the Sabbath, in it there will be none." And it happened that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather and found none. So again, the people were not listening, following his statutes and commands. And our Creator said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments, my Torah? See, for your Creator has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Each person stay in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the 7th day." And the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel called the name of it manna. And it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So this was a delicious thing that he provided for them, but the children still did not listen. 16:32 of Exodus, and Moses said, "This is the thing that our Creator commands. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, so that they can see the bread which I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out from the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a pot, and put an omer full of manna in it, and lay it up before our Creator to be kept for your generations." So Aaron laid it up as our Creator commanded Moses, and kept it before the testimonial. And the children of Israel ate manna for 40 years, until they came to the inhabited land. And they ate manna until they came to the borders of the land of Canaan. Now the omer is a 10th part of an ephod, which basically means here an ephod is 3/5 of a bushel. Basically, they kept manna, and manna was actually put into the Ark of the Covenant. So they were following his directions there. So here the children ate this manna for 40 years in the desert. So our Creator provided for 40 years with the instructions. On 6 days you go out, but on the 6th day you collect twice, and the 7th day you don't go out, you rest. So that's the Sabbath, and it's being taught about there. Well, now we go into chapter 17 of Exodus, and it says, "The whole congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin by their travels according to the commandment of our Creator, and pitched in a tent in Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink there. And therefore the people contended with Moses and said, 'Give us water so we can drink.' And Moses said to them, 'Why argue with me? Why do you tempt us? Do you not see that it's our Creator who's in charge, and not me?' And the children of Israel said, 'No, you brought us out here to die, and our cattle will thirst, and we're going to die of thirst.'" So again, the children have not learned. They continue to not learn. Their hearts are being hardened. These were the plagues that were amongst the children of Israel, not the children of Egypt. And still, there's a reason. So our Creator can be exalted, and only when the lesson is learned that can we truly be in his shalom and his peace. And the lesson is learned when we believe and we have faith. In 17:4 it says, Moses cried to our Creator, says, what will I say to these people? They are almost ready to stone me. So these people weren't just complaining. These people were very, very upset and very, very angry. And our Creator said to Moses, go before the people and take the elders of Israel with you, who were leading the people to be upset. And your staff which you struck the river, take it in your hand and go. Behold, I shall stand in front of you there on the rock of Horeb, and you will strike the rock, and there water will come out of it, so the people can drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the name of the place Massah, which is test, and Meribah, which is contention, because the children of Israel became and tempted our Creator, saying, is our Creator among us or not among us? Now, when we think about this, remember, we have Yeshua being the bread of life, and he is also the water. He's the water that, the baptism of the water that's going to clean our sins and clean our memory and clean our hearts. Well, here we have just perfect examples of our wonderful Creator found right here in the Torah. The bread of life and the water. So we have both of those right here. It's beautiful. So then we go here into 17:8 of Exodus. We're coming towards the end of this week's Torah portion. 17:8 it says of Exodus, then Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephaim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose men from among us and go out and fight with Amalek. And tomorrow I shall stand at the top of the hill with my staff of the Creator that he gave us. So now we see several things here. Now we see the first time the children of Israel actually being involved in a war, or actually fighting, using those arms that they took out. So they weren't skilled. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to fight. And we also see the introduction here of Joshua. And Joshua is a man that was obedient and followed. He was one of the few that was faithful and listened to Moses. It says, choose men from among us and go out and fight Amalek. Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek. And Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it happened when Moses held his hands up that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hands, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were very heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him and sat on it. And Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one by one on each side, and the hands were steadily until the going down of the sun. And Joshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. So this made the children of Israel victorious. They didn't know how to fight, but our Creator fought for them. And again, he's showing them, Moses is the messenger. Moses is who you are to listen to. I am going to use Moses to make you victorious. Show faith. Be like Joshua. A wonderful example of the children being like Joshua. But the children still did not listen after that. But we saw that happening, and that was the beginning of several different battles that the children of Israel will have in the wilderness. Now, folks, Amalek is a representative of the enemy, the enemies of the children of Israel. And this wasn't a one-time war that they had. This was going to be an ongoing war, but he set the example, and he told Moses to remember. Write it down as a memorial that your Creator will fight for you, and we will always be victorious over Amalek. We will always be victorious if we remain faithful. And that's what he told them here in 17:14 to 17:16. And we look at that, and we have to remember that throughout all our generations, folks. The scriptures are given to us for a reason. Those of you that say and think that the original covenant is done away with, we only need the new covenant, not only are you missing the foundation of all scripture, which is the Torah, but folks, you are missing the historical record, which proves, the living proof, that our Creator is who he says he is and the things he's done. So if you truly want to understand about faith, you have to understand the story. You have to understand the history. And when you see that here, you see this. So we see here in next week's Torah portion, it's going to continue next week with Exodus 18:1 to Exodus 20:23. So that's what we're going to continue next week. And some people say Exodus 20:26 in parentheses. So 18:1 to Exodus 20:26. Read it now. Don't wait till next week. But continue reading and studying this coming week's Torah. And we could read that, and this way on a Shabbat we'll understand what it's talking about. Please put your comments or questions below the video. I pray that you were blessed by this week's Torah Portion. Check out the other videos on my website here. Thank you very much, and until then, every day, have a great Shabbat, this coming Shabbat, and Shalom, Shalom.